propose revisions that always seem to involve less respect for the rights of free nations and less freedom for the individual. These matters would be difficult under any circumstances. They are further complicated by a trend in Western countries away from global engagement and democratic confidence. Parts of Europe have developed an identity crisis. We have seen insolvency, economic stagnation, youth unemployment, anger about immigration, resurgent ethno-nationalism, and deep questions about the meaning and durability of the European Union. America is not immune from these trends. In recent decades, public confidence in our institutions has declined. Our governing class has often been paralyzed. The American dream of upward mobility seems out of reach for some who feel left behind in a changing economy. Bigotry seems emboldened. Politics seems more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets.
Now, as you may know, my running mate, Tim, is Catholic and went to Jesuit schools. And one of the things he and I have talked about is this idea from the Jesuits of the Magus, the more, the better.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another reading of Codeword Barbelon here with Jörg Lissman in Belgium, and also joining me from, I believe it's Germany, Michael. And we are, all three of us, going to read and discuss this next chapter that we're in now, Cecil Rhodes, the Global Manipulator. And I believe this was chapter 34. Or, no, 36. Wow. We're going a lot faster than my mind was stuck on 34 for some reason. Okay, so it's morning over here. I'm having my cup of coffee, and over there in Europe, they're well into their afternoon over there, aren't they?
Yeah, it's 4 p.m. I'm sitting out here on my terrace in the glooming sunshine, enjoying about 75 to 80 degrees today. It's just... I'm sorry to say for you poor guy over there in Minnesota who has been blessed with another foot of snow. I don't even know how you write snow, let alone how I can see how it looks like.
It's so funny.
I'm really enjoying my summer, yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, that's wonderful. I'm glad to hear it.
I think Michael has weather that is comparable to mine here, right?
Yes, I think so, but I'm not allowed to go into the sun because of a medicine I have to take. So I'm just enjoying it from the inside.
Yeah,
right.
Okay. I can't get enough sun because I want to produce a lot of vitamin D for my MS. That's very healthy. So
good. Yep, no doubt.
That seems to be a good plan. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, as you said, we are gathered here together today to continue our study in the book, The Codeword Barbelon, 603 Danger in the Vatican, part 1 of 2 books, undertitled The Sons of Loyola and Their Plans for World Domination. And we have come to discuss another secret society, the Rhodes Society. And as we know already from the other chapters that we read, Behind 1,000 Masks, that the Jesuits put up a lot of these societies just for distraction, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are people who busy themselves with this secret society, people who hold themselves busy with that society or that secret society, and the point is that when you have the big overview, that you see that all these secret societies are interconnected by one society, and that is, in the end, on the very top, Satan. As Jesus Christ did everything publicly when he walked the earth, Satan does everything conspiratively and hidden. And that's why Satan is the leader of all these secret societies. Because all these secret societies, whatever name they are, If it is, and I said that already, I think, in the last broadcast, whether you take the Bilderbergers, the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Committee of 300, the Round Table, the Club of Rome, the Freemasons, the Jesuits, the Opus Dei, the Alpha Beta Kappa, I don't know, all these scholaristic, reading societies, or what it was called. We read that in the book. I always forget the name again. I'm sorry for that. Whatever of these societies you take, they all have the same goal, and that is to establish a theocracy in this world. A theocracy, of course, under the God of Rome. Yeah, this little God who sits there on his throne, calls himself the Pope, the Bishop of Bishops, and who calls himself the Vicar of Christ, where he actually is the Vicar of Satan. And that theocracy is called the New World Order, which is nothing else but the restoration of the Old World Order on a this time completely global scale. And all the secret societies that we are speaking of in this book and in other books, they all work for the same goal, to sustain and support that goal of the Roman Catholic Church, the Church of the Antichrist. Okay, so far for the introduction. Let's continue. We have come to page 361, and the next subchapter of Cecil Rhodes, The Global Manipulator, is called The Brief History of the Rhodes Secret Society. So on page 361, in the middle of the page, I'm going to continue for everyone who has his own copy of the book and wants to continue and reading along with us. On February 5th, 1891, Rhodes and two other influential men formed the Society of the Round Table, which Rhodes had been scheming for 16 years. One of the men was William T. Stead, quote, probably the most sensational journalist of the day, unquote. The third was Reginald Balliol Brett, later known as Lord Isher, friend and confidant of Queen Victoria, and later to be the most influential advisor of King Edward VII and King George V. Rhodes and his helpers also formed a secret society called the Circle of Initiates, along with several other semi-secret front organizations, chief of which was a scholarship fund. The following is a quote from the Jesuit professor Carroll Quigley, who is in the meantime deceased, and is the author of the book Tragedy and Hope, who was Bill Clinton's mentor, while the latter was a student at the Jesuit-owned Georgetown University. Carroll Quigley gives this insight into the background of Lord Isher, the Queen's confidant. Quote, Brett, who succeeded his father as Viscount Isher in 1899, is one of the most influential and one of the least known men in British politics in the last 2 generations. His importance could be judged better by the positions he refused than by those he held during his long life, between 1852 and 1930. Isher's reason for refusing these positions were twofold. He wanted to work behind the scenes rather than in the public view, and his work in secret was so important and so influential that any public post would have meant a reduction in his power. Isher was probably the most important advisor on political matters to Queen Victoria, King Edward VII, and King George V. Unquote. What Quigley writes next is even more revealing. Quote, in South Africa, Garrett, another of Rhodes' collaborators, was on the most intimate personal relationships with Rhodes. That Garrett knew of the secret society is recorded by Garrett himself in an article which he published in the Contemporary Review after Rhodes' death in 1902. The words in which Garrett made his last revelation are of some significance. He spoke of, quote, that idea of a sort of Jesuit-like secret society, unquote. You see, dear reader, there is nothing new under the sun. the SS was established under the same hierarchy as the Jesuits, and so is the secret society of the Rhodes, of Cecil Rhodes. Yeah, there is nothing new under the sun. They always copy from each other, and that's why they are all to be identified with the same goal. Yeah? They all have this hierarchical structure in this idea of a sort-like Jesuit secret society with, again, one person on the top. Now, the author continues to tell us on page 362 that perhaps this is a good time as any to reveal more about this man, Carroll Quigley. He lived between 1910 and 1977. Quigley graduated magna cum laude with MA and Master's and PhD degrees from Harvard. He was the youngest person to receive a PhD from Harvard. After teaching at Harvard and Princeton, he went to the oldest Jesuit university in America, Georgetown, where for 28 consecutive years alumni selected him as their most influential professor. He became a highly respected professor at the Faculty of Foreign Service at Georgetown University, that was established by Walsh, and was also a consultant to the U.S. Department of Defense, the House Committee on Astronautics and Space Exploration, and to the U.S. Navy. We will hear more from this knowledgeable and interesting man shortly. One of the greatest influences on Rhodes was the book by Winwood Reade, The Martyrdom of Man. Rhodes said of the book, "It made me what I am." In that book, Reade wrote that there was no God and that the world should be run on the basis of social Darwinism, survival of the fittest. Reade also attacked traditional morality, advocating a secular humanism. Rhodes himself was widely believed to be a homosexual, or a sodomite, as I prefer to call them. Of significance, another of his favorite books included the works of classical Greek and Roman scholars, but it was the 6th volume work of Edward Gibbon's The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, between 1776 and 1788, that was written, I think. That was his favorite, which Rhodes read and reread. Why? Well, note the year, 1776, the founding of the Illuminati. Cecil Rhodes, a Freemason and a Jesuit? Is that a contradiction, by the way? Can a Freemason be a Jesuit? Or can a Jesuit be a Freemason?
Of course.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why?
You play both sides.
A Jesuit is told to be everything to every man. He's a chameleon.
Yeah.
And he takes all his vows, especially, of course, I don't think he takes the 4th vow of induction by the Jesuits, but all the other vows he takes with mental reservation and equivocation.
That's right.
So, for a Jesuit to infiltrate Freemasonry, of course, a Jesuit can become a Freemason, but it is more likely for a Jesuit to become a Freemason than for a Freemason to become a Jesuit.
Oh, yeah, that would be for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they get some acting classes in their Jesuit school.
You can scrap the maybe in that, and that of course goes back to their spiritual exercises also.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, of course they get that, and they are very well trained in rhetoric, in debates and discussions and all that stuff. That's why whenever you see a Jesuit and you discuss with a Jesuit, that is a discussion that you probably can never ever win, because they are so very well educated in that subject.
True.
So a Freemason and a Jesuit, well, I think it is quite safe to say that every Jesuit is a Freemason, but not every Freemason is a Jesuit. I think that will make the point of this. Now, Cecil Rhodes, a Freemason and a Jesuit. Although not widely publicized, Rhodes was a high-ranking Freemason. Shortly after arriving at Oxford, Rhodes was initiated into Freemasonry at the Apollo University Lodge number 357. On April 17, 1877, he was raised to the degree of Master Mason in the same lodge. Rhodes also joined a Scottish Rite Lodge at Oxford called Prince Rosecroix Lodge number 30. And strangely, on one occasion, he casually revealed the satanic cult secrets of the 33rd Rite. Thus, it seems Rhodes was himself initiated as a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemason. That's about the same standing that Albert Pike had when he was ruling the United States as the most high Freemason at the end of the 19th century, correct?
Correct.
That was also a 33rd degree Freemason of the Scottish Rite. Yeah, I just have to take a second and put my t-shirt back on, otherwise I'm burning too much in the sun.
Okay. I thought you were trying to mute the birds in the background.
No. I just put on my t-shirt. Okay. What is significant about Rhodes' Masonic connection is that, like the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt, Rhodes is in successive wills, 6 or 8 in total, or 7, as we also spoke about in an earlier broadcast, expressed his determination to set up a powerful secret society within Freemasonry to be based on the order of the Jesuits. And as we saw earlier, he openly expressed his admiration for the Jesuits, whom he said had achieved much good despite what he cleverly termed their quote-unquote bad cause and bad leaders. Attacking your true allegiance is sometimes the best disguise, as Adam Weishaupt did in 1776 when he affected hatred for the Jesuit order. Yeah, attacking your true allegiance is sometimes the best disguise. When we go back to the oath of the Jesuits, somewhere in the beginning of this book, we read that the Jesuits are told to teach even against the Roman Catholic Church if in the end this advances the agenda of the Roman Catholic Church. Let me just see if I can find this very easy. But I'm looking at the oath that is on page 79, page 80.
Wow.
In the book. Yeah, but I don't find this right now. Maybe you can look it up, Brett.
I will.
Where exactly that states that in the oath, and then you can add that to my reading. But this is absolutely no news for us when we're reading this. Attacking your true allegiance is sometimes the best disguise. Of course, when you always teach against the Jesuits, you can very easily be a Jesuit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to name one popular example. Eric John Phelps, who, in my understanding, is at least a Jesuit coadjutor. But we spoke about that in the past already. There are even people who were saying that I am a Jesuit lately on videos of mine. Anyway.
Oh, that's probably what, this is the strategy. This is how it works.
Yeah, people do character attacks when they can attack the message that you bring, because your message is based on the Bible, on the Word of God, and your message is true and your message is proven. And then they do character attacks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a Jesuitical tactic, by the way, to attack the character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In each of his successive wills, Rhodes refined his envisaged secret society. In his fourth will of June 1888, Rhodes, in an accompanying letter, instructed Lord Nathaniel M. Rothschild, between 1840 and 1915 he lived in this world, his collaborator and financier, to obtain the constitutions of the Jesuits and, quote, insert English empire for Roman Catholic religion, unquote. Thus, all the Rhodes secret societies and associations have as their charter the Jesuit constitutions. You remember the Moneta Secreta we were talking about in the beginning of this book reading, and the secret instructions of the Jesuits, and, of course, the constitutions. It all goes back to that. This was the reason Mr. Rhodes read and reread Edward Gibbon's The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. According to Gibbon, both history and the Bible justified the Roman Church in its claim to a divine origin, and on that basis he was converted to Catholicism. Likewise, Rhodes was not interested in re-establishing the English Empire, as he claimed, but rather the Holy Roman Empire. As an aside, in my research, P.D. Stewart says here, the names of members of the Rothschild family, such as Nathaniel Rothschild, and their banking dynasty kept popping up in connection with various secret societies, political conspiracies, and international conflicts. I say more on this in Volume 2. Codeword Barbelon, The Antichrist is a woman, alive and well, and we will see to read that in the future, of course, too. But coming back to Cecil Rhodes now. Of the power and pervasiveness of the Rhodes Round Table, another prominent member, Leopold Emery, who lived between 1873 and 1955, later observed, quote, "If the vision was Rhodes, it was Milner, who over some 20 years laid securely the foundations of a system whose power throughout the English-speaking world would be difficult to exaggerate." Unquote. This web of secret societies, said Rhodes, should own portions of the press, for the press rules the mind of the people. Here's a clip from Rhodes' Confession of Faith, which was originally written in Rhodes' own handwriting on June 2nd, 1877, at Oxford University. The grammatical errors are in the original, so I probably won't read them. You can read the grammatical errors, but I'm just going to read the quote that's in the book here. Quote, "At the present day, I become a member of the Masonic Order. I see the wealth and power they possess, the influence they hold. What has the main cause of the success of the Romish Church? The fact that every enthusiast, call it if you like, every madman finds employment in it, a veiled reverence to the Don Quixote, no doubt. Let us form the same kind of society. The society should inspire and even own portions of the press, for the press rules the mind of the people. The society should always be searching for members who might, by their position in the world, by their energies or character, forward the object." Unquote. The society should own the press. Well, we know through the papal encyclicals Inter Mirifica and Miranda Prosus that the Roman Catholic Church owns all the press. It is her birthright to own all media, printing media, television, movies, radio at that time, and since then added, of course, all social media and alternative media also. Social media including the complete internet. Yeah. So, of course, they are actually all part of the Roman Catholic Church's agenda. And you can see this right here when they say the society should inspire and even own portions of the press. Well, when the Roman Catholic Church first says it is her right, even that was later, the encyclicals were of the 20th century, not of the 19th, as we read here. But we know that the Roman Catholic Church encyclicals were spread after they already owned all of the press. Yeah? We know that, for example, the Rothschilds are the guardians of the Vatican treasury, and they are the owners of, for example, Reuters news agency, which is the biggest news agency in the world and exists for, I think, about 200 years now. And they are the owners of that. So when the Rothschilds actually are working for the Vatican and they own the biggest news agency in the world, who actually owns the biggest news agency in the world? I'm sorry, this is only a $2,000 question. This is not the $64,000 question.
Right.
You know?
Well, that's the Vatican.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
Yeah.
you want $2,000.
You could now spend it on a new machine.
Oh, but I'd rather pay my taxes than I put on my credit card.
Yeah, give it back to the source where it came from, Brett.
Oh, exactly right. Render to Caesar what's Caesar's.
Yeah. Now, P.D. Stewart continues, we are in possession of facts which suggest that the Jesuits have been behind the Rhodes Anglo-American plan, as well as all the secret societies formed under Rhodes' various wills. On pages 34 and 35 of his aforementioned book, Professor Quigley writes, quote, Rhodes, in this first will, written while he was still an undergraduate of Oxford at the age of 24, left all his wealth to be used to create a secret society patterned on the Jesuits. The reference to the Jesuits as the model for his secret society is found in a Confession of Faith, which Rhodes had written 2 years earlier in 1875, and which he enclosed in his will. 13 years later, that's 1888, in a letter to the trustee of his third will, Rhodes told how to form the secret society, saying, take Constitution of the Jesuits, if obtainable, and insert English Empire for or in place of Roman Catholic religion, unquote. That is what Quigley tells us. Here is a strange set of coincidences. Rhodes was a graduate of Jesuit-controlled Oxford University. He had a plan for world domination, and he based his secret society on the very constitution of the Jesuits. So where's the coincidence here? Mm-hmm. Reader, right. Rhodes was a crypto-Jesuit. So says William Stead, a close friend of Rhodes, quote, Mr. Rhodes was a grey archangel crossed with a Jesuit, who was so devoted to his ends that almost all means were to him indifferent, excepting in so far as they helped him. Or in other words, the end justifies the means. In other words, for Rhodes, like the Jesuit, I shouldn't have commented that when it comes up in the next sentence here. I didn't see that.
You can skip it.
Yeah. This book doesn't need my comments very much. I see that.
Well, once in a while it does, though, Jörg. Come on.
Yeah, once in a while it does. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
I'm not disappointed. I just find it funny that I comment on this, and then in the very next sentence I have to repeat myself.
It's happened more than once.
Yeah, it happened more than once. Yeah. So P.D. Stewart continues to tell us, in other words, for Rhodes, like the Jesuits, the end justified the means. The use of the words grey archangel is quite interesting. The Jesuit general is called His Grey Eminence. What is also interesting is that Mr. Rhodes penned his Confession of Faith in the hours immediately following his initiation into the Masonic Order at Oxford University. We shall next see what was Mr. Rhodes' aim in creating his web of secret societies. More on Rhodes' many wills and secret societies. This chapter on Cecil Rhodes, the global manipulator, continues. When Rhodes died in 1902, he was considered at the time one of the wealthiest men in the world. As we saw earlier, in one of his many wills, Rhodes left a large sum of money with instructions for the establishment of a secret society that would act in furtherance of his aim of recovering America and enabling his hidden power to rule the entire productive world. That was his second will of September 9, 1877, which importantly clarified Rhodes' vision of establishing a secret society, which he said was for the ultimate aim of the recovery of the United States. Recover from what, I ask? The provisions of that will are, in pertinent part, as follows, quote, to and for the establishment, promoting, and development of a secret society, the true aim and object whereof shall be colonization, and especially the ultimate recovery of the United States of America as an integral part of the British Empire. Okay, now we're going to just go a little bit back and we scrap the British Empire and we insert the Roman Catholic religion, as we read just earlier, and then we see another proof of that the United States of America is the second beast of Revelation 13, when it says here, colonization. What are the Americans doing today with all their different military bases all over the country, all over the world? Not all over the country, but all over the world. They are colonizing the whole world, right? They are putting their power stamp in every country, wherever they want to. They are colonizing it. And the ultimate recovery of the United States of America, no, I think that we have to read this, the ultimate recovery of the Roman Catholic Church, Brett.
Yes.
I think that's what
right.
it's all
because
about.
The second beast makes the whole world worship the first beast, which came before it. So now we have the rise of a global power, the United States of America, that is unprecedented in world history. I mean, it's horrifying, really, when you add this all up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is the way that we have to understand that when we read this, it is, I have said this so often during the reading of this book, you have to read between the lines, and you have to use your understanding that you have from the Bible and reading other secular books like this from P.D. Stewart, and then connect the dots, and then all of a sudden a sentence even in this will from 1877 from Cecil Rhodes comes into a fruition and gives you a complete different understanding. All of a sudden you can read that to and for the establishment, promotion, and development of a secret society, the true aim and object whereof shall be colonization, and especially the ultimate recovery of the Roman Catholic Church as an integral part of a worldwide theocracy. And finally, the foundation of so great a power as to render wars impossible and promote the best interests of humanity. The quote ends here. The foundation of so great a power as to render wars impossible? Where have I read that before? Wasn't that in the book of Revelation in the Bible, where it states who can make war with the beast?
Ooh, good point. Yes, that's right.
Now, do you see the connection to biblical prophecy, to everything that we read here in this book of P.D. Stewart, Codeword Barbelon? Isn't that wonderful when you can connect the dots like this, and all of a sudden you get a much wider understanding of biblical prophecy on the one hand and the writings of the secular writer P.D. Stewart on the other? It's moments like this, when understanding like this comes into me and tells me that this actually is meant with all this what we are reading here, that makes it all worthwhile. And that is what the people need to know out there who are less schooled. And that is no offense meant, but I keep myself very much busy with these stuff.
That's great. That's great, Eric. I stumbled into that reading from Ian Paisley, that he actually wasn't a reading. It was a sermon he did after his confrontation with the Pope in Parliament in what was that, in the 80s. I forget what year. In the
84.
Yeah. 84, 86, something like that.
I think 84.
Okay.
I think 84. Yeah.
So he has this sermon that he did on 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. I'm not sure if you've heard it, but you have.
No,
you haven't? Oh,
no.
Man. Well, that I just been listening to that over and over and over again for 3-4 times over the past week. And it's points like this in history. I mean, this is historical research here. Because this quote we're reading here from Cecil Rhodes Society here, was it September 1877? And it's just, this is exactly like this interview Ian Paisley did after that Parliament, where he confronted the Antichrist and called him what he is. And
John Paul II,
the people just can't fathom it because they're not biblically based at all. And they're ecumenically based, and they call it biblical. That's the problem here. And it really goes into this indoctrination that goes right into the very scriptures themselves. So which manuscripts do we use? What's the valid manuscript? You know, that's really the ultimate Bible question. And I think many Bible believers are not prepared to answer that so easily.
No, that's true. That's why I a short time ago read this 5-parter, Did the Catholic Church Give Us the Bible, where you can see, of course, where the real preserved texts come from. You have these 2 streams, one stream coming from Antioch and one stream coming from Alexandria. One is the correct stream of words, of the true preserved words of God, and one is the corrupted stream from Alexandria, Egypt, coming down there.
That's right.
And and I started today uploading in German also a text that I found. It's 43 pages on the Textus Receptus and the Masoretic texts. You know, Masoretic are the texts, the true Hebrew text of the Old Testament, and the Textus Receptus is the true Greek text of the New Testament. And I started reading that 43 long page paper in German now, and telling the people why it is so important that you choose the right Bible.
Yes,
and,
it is.
You throughout that book, throughout that paper, like also in Did the Catholic Church Give Us the Bible, was mentioning of just verses or parts of verses that are in modern Bibles, in the text critic Bibles we call them, deleted. Yeah? And all these Bibles were prepared from the moment in England on, after the Emancipation Act of 1829. And then when the Oxford movement started in 1830, then they got busy with that. And some 30, 40 years later, they started putting out all the Bibles, because all the forgerized Bibles actually only have come into fruition since the end of the 19th century.
That's right.
Before that, for more than 3 centuries, it was only the King James Bible and the renovated Textus Receptus and the Masoretic texts, which were the basis for that. And of course, the Jesuits are sworn to kill off Protestantism. Now, to kill off Protestantism, to exterminate Protestantism from this world, first and for all, you have to diminish the belief that people have. And how can you diminish the belief? Well, when you change the word of God, people do not know what to believe anymore, because they cannot find the true word of God anymore.
Oh, and not only that, but you have to be educated to know what that is. See? You can't just know. You can't be uneducated, as they say. Well, that's the point. They pitted the one against the other. They pitted the Gnostic learning that you get in school against the Bible learning you get at home and you do on your own. And
learning against learning,
yes,
Brett. It
learning
all comes
against
back to
learning.
that.
And they call us uneducated. That's what the world calls us.
Yeah.
It's bogus. But so be it. That's the world.
You see, someone came up with the idea that the Third World War would be an information war, but actually this information war started. What was it? 1599 with the Jesuit. What's it? Ratio Studiorum.
Oh yes, Ratio Studiorum. Yeah,
Ratio Studiorum.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, one could argue the information war has been happening ever since Christ came, and before that too. So it's just amazing how you look at history. There's so many different ways to look at it once you learn what's happening.
Yeah, just when you take a look at history, you see the oldest forgerized Bible is actually the 70 text, which is known as the Septuagint. The Septuagint is a translation from the old Hebrew true Old Testament into the Greek 200 or 300 years before Jesus Christ was born. But that translation was not correct. And that Septuagint is a basis for a lot of Bibles, even today. So, yeah, as you said, this information war already started before the birth of Christ.
Oh, yeah.
But because many things of the Bible, because of the Septuagint, were known to the Romans at that time, they had their Sibylline Gospels, which were just a mirror of something written in the Bible, but then in a Gnostic way, of course.
Yeah, and this comes right back to, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was just thinking this comes right back to that word providence. Well, what is providence? Why is providence so important? And providence is used in a lot of these old books that defines, how our entire world operates, within the structure of government. So you have divine providence, and then perhaps you have a universal or the natural providence. I don't know how to put this forward yet. I was just couldn't help but make that observation. It's something I've been thinking about, and it's not so easy to answer myself. Not so easy, not so straightforward.
No, I guess not so. Leave it up for another broadcast when you have more thoughts about it, or leave it up to our listeners and viewers of this video that they can answer that for you and help you with the discovery of the true answer to that question about the providence.
Cool, but I really like this quote you just read here, Jörg, and what in your commentary on it. It's very good.
Thanks. So we continue now on page 366 in the book. The reader should not be misled about the will's reference to the British Empire, for as we read a few paragraphs earlier, Rhodes instructed Lord Rothschild in his fourth will of June 1888 that he should use the Jesuit constitutions, and wherever the words Roman Catholic religion appeared, it should be replaced with the words English Empire. The question is why. In the Anglo-American establishment, Professor Carroll Quigley, who lived between 1910 and 1977, writes, quote, "The Rhodes scholarships established by the terms of Cecil Rhodes' seventh will are known to everyone. What is not so widely known is that Rhodes in 5 previous wills left his fortune to form a secret society. And what does not seem to be known to anyone is that this secret society was created by Rhodes and his principal trustee, Lord Milner, and continues to this day. This society has been known at various times as Milner's Kindergarten, as the Round Table Group, as the Rhodes Crowd, as the Times Crowd, as the All Souls Group, as the Clevedine Set." Unquote. Quigley adds that this group has held meetings in various places in London, chiefly Piccadilly, at various colleges at Oxford University, chiefly All Souls. Perhaps it is also worthy of note that despite Quigley's renown as a scholar with a best-selling book, the Anglo-American establishment was rejected by 15 publishers. Having had no reviews, the book languished and didn't sell, and Macmillan destroyed the plates from which the first edition had been printed.
Comment.
Yeah, please.
I was reading the footnote here. Carroll Quigley, the Anglo-American establishment. Quigley died in 1977, and the book, quote, the Anglo-American establishment, was written in 1949, but only published in 1981. Thought that was interesting there. That was written in 1949.
Yeah, so it was published posthume, right?
Yeah.
After his death.
That's right.
Yeah, then of course the author cannot make any changes anymore and check if everything is published the correct way also that he wrote it, right?
Mm-hmm. You got it.
Perhaps it is also worthy of note that despite Quigley's renown as a scholar with the best-selling book, the Anglo-American establishment was rejected by 15 publishers. Having had no reviews, the book languished and didn't sell, and Macmillan destroyed the plates from which the first edition had been printed. I shall shortly intimate why. Okay,
sounds
there
familiar.
Are some. Yeah, I read that again, but I just wanted to read that again because I think this underlined part of the last but one sentence, destroyed the plates, is quite interesting.
That's
because we were just establishing that that book then was was after his death published. The original plates were already destroyed, so everything had to be made anew, and that, of course, opens the door wide for falsification, right?
Yes.
And that's why I just wanted to read.
Who else had their plates destroyed was Charles Chiniquy, 50 years in the Church of Rome. That's why I wanted to quick say.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. I have one of the original copies, you know, and in that book, in the beginning, it says that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Very powerful forces when you're dealing with this Roman Catholic institution, and you start coming up against it and calling a spade. Watch out.
There's no doubt about that, Brett.
Yep.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Now, P.D. Stewart continues on the bottom of page 366. There are some, like researcher David Icke, who suggest that Rhodes founded the Round Table possibly with the best of intentions, including a desire to stop wars. This reads like a joke, huh? Yeah.
No, David Icke is, yeah.
Yeah, this reads like a joke. Yeah, what David Icke says here. Yeah.
That's a case of disinformation. Yes.
But that following Rhodes' death in 1902, quote, the big switch was made and the Illuminati, in classic fashion, hijacked his creation. Well, that's what David Icke writes in The Robots' Rebellion, the story of the spiritual renaissance. I mean, if you are dumb enough to pick up a book of David Icke, okay. I don't even.
Yeah, the man was on TV declaring himself to be Christ. He didn't openly do it, but he did it passively, and you can easily find that on the internet, by the way. What a joke that guy is.
He's a former sports reporter from the BBC, isn't he?
Ah,
yeah,
I didn't know.
But he was into football or something, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that answers a lot of questions.
If you want to learn about reptilians that aren't existing, if you want to learn about aliens that aren't existing, then you go to David Icke's study. And if you want to keep yourself busy with that stuff, if you have that much time to share or to spare, okay, then go there. But I don't even know why P.D. Stewart mentions David Icke in this part of the book.
Oh, just for the fun of it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Because he continues to say, of course, this statement is incorrect. For as we saw and shall see more clearly, Rhodes' various wills and confession of faith explicitly state that he always wanted a secret society that would be based on the constitutions of the Jesuits. But, you know, David Icke does not touch the Jesuit order. And I even made a video with that.
Yeah, that's right.
With Alan Lamont some time ago.
That's right.
Even though that he was standing outside on the Knights of Malta, somewhere headquarters somewhere, I think in England or wherever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking about the Jesuits, he never revealed what the Jesuits are really all about. Yeah. Mm-hmm. David Icke doesn't touch that subject with a 10-foot pole.
No, he doesn't.
Because he is not allowed to. He is controlled opposition, like Alex Jones.
Yes, in the same league, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, the only reason he would ever touch it is if he was ordered to do so, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and if he touches this, he only goes so far as he is allowed to do.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
They all get their how do you say that? They all get fenced in. They are told exactly here's the border and you don't cross that border, you know, like the circle in which the Pope is in the middle and he knows that he can move within the circle freely, but if he wants to break out of the circle, he's a dead man because the Jesuits control it all. And all these alternative media moguls like Alex Jones and David Icke have the same kind of circle they move in. And as long as they move in their allowed circuit, no problem. If they go out of it, they're dead the next day. And that's why, of course, David Icke can write something like this. So I don't understand, actually, and this is the first critique that I have in this book on P.D. Stewart. Took a long time, but it's on page 366. I have to make this comment of mine here, that I don't understand why a researcher like P.D. Stewart actually mentions a person like David Icke and then quotes what David Icke says on the Round Table and other foundings of Cecil Rhodes, and then in the very next sentence he destroys everything that David Icke says. I mean, did P.D. Stewart have problems getting this page full, or what is the reason why he mentions David Icke here? I don't know.
Maybe he likes to demask David Icke.
Well, then he should demask David Icke and not only say that this statement is incorrect. Then he should go a little bit deep into that and and uncover what David Icke is really all about. I don't think
that's coming up. I don't know. He doesn't mention it, though.
Yeah, let's see. But for the moment, I'm quite a little bit disappointed of reading this few sentences of David Icke and then the statement of P.D. Stewart. This statement is incorrect. Yeah, I know that the statement is incorrect, but he wouldn't have needed David Icke to refute this statement. He could have done that easily on other grounds also. Anyway, that's just my criticism. I just don't like P.D. Stewart in integrating David Icke into this book here in this short little notice without any obvious reasons. What other is the reason but to mention the source of David Icke's book, published in 1994, for people to maybe even purchase that book and have a look at it, you know? I don't know. I'm just not content with P.D. Stewart mentioning that here, but that's me. You don't have to agree with me, but that's my feeling. Anyway, he continues, the reader is also referred back to chapter 1 for a reminder of the iniquitous maxims found in those villainous constitutions, for which the Jesuits were driven out of Europe. The same constitutions were used by the Illuminati founder Adam Weishaupt and by Cecil Rhodes. The Jesuit-controlled University of Oxford is a, quote, a major fief within the great nexus of power, unquote. Quigley writes, quote, Rhodes' secret society has been the most powerful single influence in All Souls, Balliol, and New Colleges at Oxford for more than a generation, unquote. In the field of education, its influence was chiefly visible at Eton and Harrow and at All Souls College in Oxford. Benjamin Jowett, Master of Balliol College, Oxford, in his preface to the 1884 edition of the historical Toynbee's Lectures on the Industrial Revolution, describes the method used by Rhodes to gain control over the democratic world. Quote, they would form an organization. They would work on quietly for a time, some at Oxford, some in London. They would prepare themselves in different parts of the subject until they were ready to strike in public, unquote. The person in whose honor this lecture was held was history professor Arnold Toynbee. Mr. Toynbee wrote in his book, Civilization on Trial and the World in the West, that the next world war would be between the Christians and the Muslims. See more on this in Volume 2 of this book. So Mr. Toynbee wrote in his book Civilization on Trial and the World and the West that the next world war would be between the Christians and the Muslims. This quote is taken, of course, from a book that was written after the Second World War. So, in other words, this Mr. Toynbee is just repeating what Albert Pike so-called said in his letter to Mazzini of 1871, when he spoke about 3 world wars, right? Mm-hmm. Because there we learn that when Albert Pike speaks about the 3 world wars, that the Third World War will be between the Muslims and the Christians, and the people will be so deluded from quote-unquote Christianity that they will easily turn to the Luciferian doctrine. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So far for this, and another little advertisement that P.D. Stewart does here for reading his second volume of this book. In the end, he continues, when the secret society Rhodes had provided for was eventually organized after his death, its membership consisted entirely of a group of Freemasons called the Round Table. Milner recruited a select group of young men from Oxford University and Toynbee Hall, named after Arnold Toynbee. So what's it now? Toynbee of Toynbee? Where is the printing error?
Toynbee's right. That's right. Oh, yeah, I see there's two.
Yeah, it's Toynbee and Toynbee.
Oh,
so,
well, little slip.
To assist him in organizing and administering the new society. Among them were the poet Rudyard Kipling, Lord Arthur Balfour, Lord Rothschild, H.G. Wells, and other Oxford College graduates going by the name Milner's Kindergarten. Lord Arthur Balfour, where do we know him from?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the Balfour Declaration.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yes. Mm.
Next under chapter. I don't know. I don't have an eye on the time because I don't have my screen in front of me. How far are we?
We are
59.
Yeah,
59,
this is
40.
a good time to cut it.
This okay.
I think so. Yeah, it was interesting. I think it's actually rather good, despite, the last time we read this Yerk, I think it was rather dry, but this time was fun.
I thought so too. Yeah, I enjoyed myself too. Getting deeper and deeper into the wills of Cecil Rhodes and the founding, different founding of the different secret societies.
Very
interesting. We still have a few pages to go, so if it keeps being interesting this way, then next time with the rest of this chapter we can easily fill an hour. And otherwise we have to go to the next chapter, which is called The Rhodes Gang, Instruments of the Round Table, which is probably just a continuation of this chapter we are reading anyway.
Yeah.
But as you said, Brett, this was quite less dry than the last reading. I absolutely agree. It was more interesting, and especially, again, it was a little bit more, how do I say that, asking of our skills to connect the dots.
Yes.
And to connect this knowledge with that knowledge and to form ourselves a better overview of the overall picture that we need to see. If we don't want to be stuck close to the mosaic and then see only the few little jig puzzle pieces which don't make any sense until you put them all together. So I have quite spoken enough in this little hour. Then I want to leave the closing remarks to Michael if he has something, and of course you, Brett.
Sure.
I thank you. I'm not gone. I'm just saying I'm done. But if you have a question, of course, I'll still be here.
Good.
I want to thank our watchers, our viewers of the video, and listeners to the audio for their attention and for their contribution and comments that they make, and want to ask them to keep on because we still have some 140 pages to go in this book, and then comes volume 2.
I hope that volume 2 comes because I have ordered it. Then I'm awaiting it.
Good, Michael. That's great.
In the meantime, I discovered on Wikipedia a quite impressive cartoon, which it's called The Rhodes Colossus, where Mr. Rhodes has been painted standing widespread on the top of Africa. So you might get an impression how important this man was at his time. And it's called, as I said, the Rhodes Colossus. So it must be a very, very important and wealthy guy at his time.
All right, Michael and Yerk, thank you very much. Should we wrap it up for today?
Yep.
Okay. Well, looking forward to next time, everybody. God bless, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
That for the first time in human history, for the first time in all of human history, almost all of mankind is politically awake. And these new and old major powers face still yet another novel reality, in some respects unprecedented. And it is that while the lethality of their power is greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. I once put it rather pungently, and I was flattered that the British Foreign Secretary repeated this, as follows. Namely, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people, literally. It was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. It is easier to kill than to control.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict. And I believe that we've come horribly off track in the years since the fall of the Soviet Union. And we're starting now in the 21st century, which I believe strongly is a crisis both of our church, a crisis of our faith, a crisis of the West, and a crisis of capitalism.
His son Jesus is here in our midst. His bride, the church, is honored to host an event affirming the dignity of the human person and the sacredness of all human life.
I think Russia is no longer a communist state, first of all. That's very important to realize. It hasn't yet defined itself, however, effectively as a democracy. It is still uncertain.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict, of which if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, to really be able to not just stand with our beliefs, but to fight for our beliefs against this new barbarity that's starting, that we will literally eradicate everything that we've been bequeathed over the last 2,025 years.
You didn't mention the president by name, but it was hard not to conclude that that's who you were referring to. Is that fair?
I was certainly referring to the threats that we are now facing with this stated goals of this administration, which would upset the last 70 years of a new world order which was established after World War II. 70 years based on human rights, respect for the law, free trade, all of the things, aspects of this world order that took place after one of the most horrific, terrible wars in history, and I'm for maintaining it.
We are grateful to be citizens of one nation under God, who acclaim this evening that in God we trust. Bless our two candidates, our benefactors, and those whom the L. Smith Foundation has been honored to serve for 7 decades. Guide us safely home, both this evening and for all eternity, through Christ our Lord. Amen.